Your lecturer is Anne Williams. Dr. Williams is a professor of French at the Metropolitan State University of Denver, where she teaches courses in language, literature, and culture. She earned her PhD from Northwestern University and earned a Diplôme d'études approfondies from the Université Lyon 2. Dr. Williams was named Chevalier dans l'Ordre des Palmes Académiques by the French Ministère de l'Éducation nationale. She regularly presents conference papers and has co-authored 4 college-level French textbooks.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Anne Williams et je suis un professeur de français. Je travaille à Denver, dans le Colorado, depuis 26 ans. J'adore les étudiants dans mon université. J'adore aussi le café. My name is Anne Williams, and I am a French professor. I've been working in Denver, Colorado for 26 years. I love the students at my university. I also love coffee. I grew up in an English-speaking home in Colorado, and I discovered my passion for French in my early 20s. So, to people who say that you can't learn French as an adult, allow me to disagree. Was it the sound of the language that first attracted me? Or was it the romantic idea of someday going to Paris? Maybe it was the literature I read in translation, or the one French restaurant where we went for very special occasions. I might have been attracted by the fact that French is spoken in so many countries around the world. Whatever it was, here I am all these years later, sharing my passion with students and with you. And I'm wondering what sparked your interest in French. I suspect that as you discover more about French-speaking cultures in this course, you'll find all kinds of reasons to learn this beautiful language. At least, that is my hope. Along with the personal motivation that you may have for pursuing French, there's a very practical side, too. French is an important world language, and not just for me. It's a working language for the European Union, NATO, the United Nations, and the Olympic Games. It's among the top 10 most frequently used languages on the internet. French is an official language of 30 countries and is widely spoken in at least 10 others. It serves as a common language in several multilingual countries, particularly in North Africa and West Africa. For example, some Berbers and Arabs in Morocco might not understand each other's languages, but French might be a language they share. You see all 3 languages on the sign at the Green Party headquarters in Rabat. French also allows those of us from the outside to get to know their cultures and gives them opportunities in global markets. When you speak French, you'll join approximately 200 million people who use French every day. And it's been projected that 750 million people will be speaking French in 2050. See? My second language is not in danger of extinction. But what does it mean to learn French or any other foreign language? And how can a course like this one help you to do so? These are wonderful questions to consider right now as you take on this project. First and foremost, it is important to recognize that language learning is a process, a continuous process. It's inconceivable to me that anyone could learn to communicate in a new language just by repeating phrases and conversations. Learn a language in 30 easy lessons without memorizing those troublesome verbs? No. Conversely, just learning those verbs won't do it either. There is no perfect method for learning a language. However, this course will give you tools for working with the language, and most importantly, you'll learn to trust the process. You'll get experience in listening, reading, writing, and yes, even speaking French, if only to yourself or to the friend you decide to share this adventure with. Adventure? Mais oui! You'll be taking risks when I ask you to make funny faces as you pronounce a new sound. Adventure? Understanding French is fun, and it will become easier and easier as you progress through this course. You'll be able to replay things or move on and come back. The language lab that comes after each lecture has speaking activities, and the cahier d'exercice will also reinforce your work. When people ask me which French-speaking country I love the most, well, I hardly know what to answer. Most of my professional experience has been in France, but my recent stay in Morocco makes me want to answer Le Maroc. 2 years ago, though, I would have said Le Sénégal. So, the cultural adventure and the joy of being able to talk with people keep me excited about French. And you? Soon you'll be talking too. Whoever you are, you already understand some French because you speak English. In fact, nearly 30% of English words in an 800,000 word dictionary are of French origin. French words are used in standard English in science, pasteurization, in architecture, facade, in art, aquarelle. French words are used in politics, coup d'état, and in music, étude, and in cuisine, vinaigrette, coq au vin. If I start listing the cooking vocabulary, we'll never get past this introduction. A French friend wanted to improve his English, so he signed up for an internet word of the day. To his surprise, most of the words that popped up were cognates. He was very proud that he already knew so much. Okay, he still has to work on pronunciation. Don't believe me? Let's try an experiment. I'll read a paragraph in French. What words are you able to understand? Don't forget, you can pause and repeat this as many times as you like. Here we go. Tous les week-ends, il y a une grande réception à la résidence de l'ambassadeur américain. L'ambassadeur invite des entrepreneurs importants pour les échanges économiques entre la France et les États-Unis. Au début de la soirée, pendant le cocktail, des musiciens présentent un concert ou un récital. Les chefs-d'œuvre classiques sont très populaires, mais les invités apprécient aussi la musique moderne de Ravel ou de Debussy. Dans les jardins du château, il y a de belles roses avec un parfum intense et délicat. Quel plaisir! If you understood, say, between 5 and 15 words, your English language filter might be working a bit too well. Not to worry. If you understood between 16 and 26, your French ears are tuning in. If you understood more than that, félicitations. Congratulations. This little test is just to remind you that you have some vocabulary from the very outset. One other thing. I bet you were pretty focused as you listened. That's important. You'll have activities like this throughout the whole course. Activities where I ask you to repeat, guess, practice. Active participation will help you to learn much faster. Here's another bit of good news. French is a language that loves to follow rules, even if French people sometimes don't. Patterns and rules will help you, and even today's lesson will include things that you can practice and build on. Pronunciation? Yes, and some very useful expressions. Later in this lecture, I'll give some examples of the ties between language and culture. These will show you just how far you can go with very little French. Really. The pronunciation you'll practice is standard French from France. In no way does this mean that other accents in French are less correct. If you have the chance to talk to people from other French-speaking countries, great. It won't take you long to understand their French, and you'll be understood too. At least that's been my experience. You've already been listening to some of the sounds of French, and now it's time to pronounce them. It may feel strange at times, but take the risk. It's worth it. Rather than starting out with letters of the alphabet, let's start with words. That way, you can associate new sounds with some practical expressions. Let's get started. Commençons. I said a bit ago that French is a language that loves rules and patterns. Here's our first pattern. Think about the word nation in English. The French pronunciation is nation. Repeat, nation. If you know that the endings T-I-O-N and S-I-O-N are pronounced sion in French, you won't have much trouble understanding these French words. Passion, conversation, communication. Repeat, please. Passion, conversation, communication. Uh-oh. Did I hear a bit of trouble with communication? Oh, the sion was fine. It's the U, the American U, I'm worried about. Communication. Is French hard to pronounce? Well, maybe at first. It is different. Most people with practice can learn to pronounce French correctly. And if you can't get it just perfect, they'll understand you anyway. It'll work better than what my father tried, which is speaking English louder so they could understand. Let's work on pronunciation and give you some communication tools at the same time. If I can't say anything else in the language of a country I'm visiting, I want to be able to say, excuse me. And the French are very fond of politeness and protocol, so this will go a long way. In French, it's excusez-moi. Please repeat. Excusez-moi. Not only can I apologize for stepping on someone's toe, but I can get a waiter's attention. Excusez-moi. Oh.
Du café?
Bah oui, je veux bien. Merci. I can ask the hotel clerk to repeat or clarify. Excusez-moi. And I can even graciously get off a crowded subway car during rush hour. Excusez-moi. Okay, so what are the sounds that might cause trouble? We headed down this path because of the U in communication. Let's begin with the vowel U and the sound that it makes when it's alone. U is not oo as in goose. That will be a different letter combination. It's an uptight sound that you can say by first saying E, like eek, a mouse. Try it. Eek. You should be smiling. It's a harmless little mouse and you're laughing at yourself. Feel where your tongue is and how the inside of your mouth is configured. My tongue is spread fairly flat between my upper back teeth. Relax. Now you need to say goose. Same game as before. See how your lips are rounded? How the inside of your mouth feels? Goose. Your job now is to say E and then round your lips as though you were saying the oo of goose. E, oo, U. Oops. Keep the E inside as you round your lips. U. Excusez-moi. Try it a few more times. Excusez-moi. 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 As you polish up your French U, you're already well on your way to avoiding the accent américain. Here's one thing to note with excusez-moi. Even though I varied the intonation to convey different meanings, I never punched the words too much. I didn't use a very wide range of pitch either. French is much more subtle than American English in many ways. You can get your message across quite clearly with little variation in pitch. You can express yourself without sounding sing-songy. So, excusez-moi, I'd now like to add a couple more words to your active vocabulary that you can produce. Monsieur and Madame. You've certainly seen these words before, but now notice how the letters you see correspond or don't correspond to the sounds you hear. One idea? As you learn new words, create mnemonic devices to help you. Consider the spelling of the word monsieur. Now, draw a diagonal line through letters that you don't hear. Monsieur. M, okay. O, okay. N, shall we cross it out? Yes. The S is fine, and the I-E-U-R too. You can draw a line through the R, the R, to remind you not to say it. Voila! Try this, or develop your own system to remember pronunciation. But really, why all the hoopla about monsieur and madame? First, monsieur and madame, when used alone, can be used as a greeting. monsieur, madame. Add the bonjour. Repeat, bonjour. Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour, madame. And there you have the beginning of an exchange with a French person. I can't stress enough how important this beginning can be. I was once at a train station waiting for a train that had been delayed. A frustrated American tourist went up to the conductor and said in French, "When's the train going to leave? Quand est-ce que le train va partir?" She spoke rather good French, but the lack of a greeting really shocked the conductor. He replied, rather firmly, "Bonjour, madame." Our grumpy tourist just needed to be more culturally aware. A simple "Bonjour, monsieur, excusez-moi," before jumping into the question would have done wonders. Or she could have said, "S'il vous plaît." "S'il vous plaît, monsieur, excusez-moi." These titles add extra politeness to the "excusez-moi." "Excusez-moi, monsieur." In the cultures where French is spoken, using the title is still considered good form. You'll use it with a greeting, "Bonjour, monsieur," "Bonjour, madame," and in other situations. Here's one of those situations. You're an American woman. You're lost, really lost. You see a young woman in, say, her 20s. "Bonjour, madame, excusez-moi." Now you have her attention, and you've shown respect. Now what? You might want to identify yourself as an American and see if she speaks English. Let me just say here that the grammar in this course will give you a strong scaffold to support your French. Here's a tiny grammar preview to help you identify yourself and ask the question. First, to make a statement, you need a form much like English. Subject, verb, complement. So, je is a subject, I. Suis is the first person singular form of the verb être, to be. And then the adjective, américain or américaine. If you are a man, je suis américain, américain. 4 syllables. Américain. Drop your jaw on the final nasal sound. If you are a woman, je suis américaine, américaine. Américaine. Flatten your tongue on the N and close it, N. Here, try this. Say egg, and then N. Américaine. Bonjour, madame. Excusez-moi. Je suis américaine. Subject, verb, complement. There you have it. A basic sentence in French. First, the subject pronouns. Je is I. Je suis dans le studio. Je contracts to J apostrophe when followed by a vowel. J'aime le studio. Tu is the familiar you. It demonstrates a certain informality and closeness. It's used among friends, family, and with children. This is the U sound we worked on before. Tu. Il is he when referring to a person, or it when referring to a masculine noun or object. Elle is she when referring to a person, or it when referring to a feminine noun or object. On is an indefinite subject pronoun, literally one. It can also be used to mean we, they, you, or people in general. More about this later, don't panic. Tout le monde means everyone. Nous is we. Vous is the formal you. You'll use this when speaking to a person you don't know well or anyone to whom you want to show respect. It's pronounced with the oo sound, oo as in goose. Vous is also you in the plural. It keeps you from having to say you all when you're addressing a group of people. Il is they for masculine people and nouns, and elle is they for feminine people and nouns. In French, all nouns have genders. So, for example, the pronoun elle could be used to refer to une actrice or une table. And watch out, one man in a group of 20 women, and the pronoun is il. Sarah, Anne, Marie et Dave. Oui, oui, ils sont ici. Let's try these with a verb. The verb to be. Je suis américaine. The infinitive of this verb is être. It is irregular. Être. Je suis, tu es, il, elle, on, tout le monde est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils, elles sont. Here's another verb to help you get through that first encounter. Parler means to speak. Here it is in a question. Vous parlez anglais? Vous parlez anglais? The formal subject vous is followed by the second person verb form parler. Parler is what is called a regular verb, a regular ER verb. There are a lot of verbs like this one. They end in ER in the infinitive, and they're all conjugated the same way. Here's a tip. To learn a regular verb, first learn the infinitive. Parler. Then drop the ending. Here it's ER. Add the endings needed for each of the subject pronouns. Repeat, please. Je parle. Tu parles. Il parle. Elle parle. On parle. Nous parlons. Vous parlez. Il parle. Elle parle. And yes, the ENT is silent. To determine if you're talking about one person, elle parle. Two people, elle parle. You need to count on the context. Parler means to speak or to talk. In English, je parle français can mean I speak French, I do speak French, I am speaking French. It depends on the context. I'll remind you about this as you learn new verbs. But back to the lost woman getting help in the street. Bonjour madame, excusez-moi, vous parlez anglais? Je suis américaine. Excusez-moi. You can use any combination of these as long as there's an excusez-moi and madame somewhere in there, or a s'il vous plaît. You see your new verb here, followed by anglais, English. Vous parlez anglais? Chances are her response will be un peu, a little, even if she's fluent. Yes, modesty is a highly valued quality, despite some stereotypes about the French. So culturally speaking, you've started off well. People tend to be kind to someone who is trying to be polite and respectful. It will become apparent, I think, that learning culture is an integral part of learning the language. Oh, and if you know some French already, you may be wondering what happened to mademoiselle. Like English, French is in constant evolution. Mademoiselle is used less frequently these days because the status of women in society has changed. It's not surprising that in the 21st century, some terms slip out of favor. And of course, new words appear. In 2015, for example, the Larousse Dictionary added selfie. Un selfie. Language, like culture, changes over time. Which leads me to the last part of today's lecture. Learning a language in the 21st century means learning to communicate in the language. And to communicate with French people or Senegalese or Moroccans or Quebecers, I need to understand some of the values that lie at the heart of their cultural practices. To learn these values requires tools similar to those you'll use to learn the language. To say, excusez-moi, madame, you listened, you repeated what you heard, and you associated these steps with a situation where you might use these simple words. You've already begun to observe and analyze language and its uses, and now I'm going to ask you to do the same with other cultural artifacts. What do I mean by cultural artifact? Just about anything that you encounter in the foreign culture. How do people dress? What do they eat? What monuments do they build? What constraints on behavior are implicit in their actions? How do they greet each other? For learning culture, there is no brochure detailed enough to help you, no teacher who can ever give you examples of every situation you may encounter. But don't give up. You'll see cultural clues throughout this course, and you'll learn to work with them as you learn to speak the language. Example. You're at the checkout of a supermarket. The cashier doesn't say the French equivalent of "How are you today?" No. She simply says, "Bonjour, madame." And you? You answer, "Bonjour, madame." You've greeted each other, and maybe not with a smile. In fact, some French visitors to the US are shocked by the personal tone that people in the service industry are often required to use. You and the store clerk are not going to become friends in the time it takes you to buy your cheese. Pretending otherwise is appreciated in some cultures, but not in many where French is spoken. However, the brief interaction you had at the French supermarket created a momentary relationship based on mutual respect. How? Monsieur comes from monsieur, my sire or lord, in the medieval sense. And madame, can you guess? Yes, my lady. In many French-speaking countries, greetings demonstrate the cultural value of clear relationships. Here, a formal one. The bonjour monsieur sets the stage for a whole set of behaviors, topics of conversation and interactions that are culturally programmed by the use of these two simple words. So, you observe a phenomenon, but rather than jumping to an interpretation, you pause, analyze. What might this mean, not in your culture, but in another culture? You respect a cultural norm, even if it seems strange at first. You may be saying at this point, but I don't want to excuse myself or spell or talk about my nationality. I want to read Montaigne, Voltaire, Rousseau. Excusez-moi. It won't happen today. But if you stick with it, you will be able to read French and ask for a book at the librairie. Oh, careful. That's a bookstore, not a library. Does the type of approach I took today surprise you? Maybe that's a good thing. Research in the field of second language acquisition offers us lots of options, and 21st century methods stress communication and language function. Today's learners are asked to combine playfulness and risk-taking with an intellectual understanding of what language is and how to use it. Little by little, the pieces fall into place, and my deepest hope is that you will go on to take a French class and interact with others. In French, of course. As you can tell, this is not survival French or French for travelers. It's French for someone who imagines an authentic contact with language and culture. Someone who knows that this contact comes slowly. Slowly. And believe me, I was a very impatient learner. We're going to end the lecture today with a scene right out of my past. We could call it Anne before French classes. I was so excited to be in Paris for the first time, but I had about 10 words of French. I had to learn patience. And heaven knows the French people I met early on were very patient with me. Excusez-moi, monsieur, vous parlez anglais? Je suis américaine.
Oui, madame, je parle un peu anglais. Can I help you?
Oh, thank goodness. I'd like to get to the Place Saint-Michel, and I'm turned around.
Turned around?
Lost.
Ah, okay. You walk down this street, la rue Serpente, past the cinema, until you get to the big Boulevard Saint-Michel. There is a kiosk for newspapers. Then you go left and go down the boulevard. You'll go past some, how do you say, boutique?
Right, shops.
There is a pharmacy, and I think a restaurant, and the Place Saint-Michel is just on your left.
Oh, merci, monsieur. Merci. Au revoir, monsieur.
Madame.
Okay. Newspapers. Kiosk. Turn left. Shops. Boutique. Une pharmacie. Un restaurant. So on my right, no, my left. Great. La Place Saint-Michel. Et mon ami, avec le sac rouge, the red bag. Bonjour, Kevin. Sure, I put this little scene together for this lecture. But believe me, it reflects many of my experiences in France. Learning to function in French took time. So be patient. Soyez patient. Be patient with me, with the language, but most of all, be patient with yourself. Au revoir, madame. Au revoir, monsieur. And à bientôt. That means see you soon.
Groupe 1.
Learners hear the word and they repeat.
La politesse. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Bonjour. Bonsoir. Au revoir. Je m'appelle. Enchanté. Excusez-moi. Pardon? Pas de problème. Oui? Non? Je ne sais pas. S'il vous plaît. Merci. De rien. Monsieur. Madame. Mademoiselle. Les substantifs apparentés. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Un entrepreneur. Un week-end. Une réception. Une résidence. Un ambassadeur. Une rose. Un parfum. Un concert. Un récital. La musique. Verbe en ER. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Parler. Inviter. Présenter. Apprécier. Adorer. Adjectif apparenté. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Important. Intense. Délicat. Classique. Populaire. Moderne. Nationalité. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Américain. Américaine. Français. Française. Canadien. Canadienne. Mot français utilisé en anglais. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. La pasteurisation. Le coup d'État. La détente. Le laisser-faire. La façade. L'architecture. L'art. L'étude. Le fuselage. La vinaigrette. le coq au vin, grammaire, les pronoms sujets. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, elle. Conjugaison des verbes réguliers en ER. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Parler. Je parle. Tu parles. Il, elle, on, tout le monde parle. Nous parlons. Vous parlez. Il, elle parle. Adorer. J'adore. Tu adores. Il, elle, on adore. Nous adorons. Vous adorez. Ils, elles adorent. Il adore. Ils adorent. Elle parle. Elle parle. Conjugaison d'un verbe irrégulier. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît. Être. Je suis. Tu es. Il, elle, on, tout le monde est. Nous sommes. Vous êtes. Ils, elles sont.
Notice that several of the letters you see are not pronounced here.
Je suis. Tu es. Il est. Nous sommes. Vous êtes. Ils sont.
And with ils sont and elles sont, you hear an S sound.
Les sons du français. 3 voyelles. Prononcez, s'il vous plaît. I, U, ou. Il, vous, tu.
Notice how tight the sound E is. There's no diphthong, which is to say that the vowel sound doesn't change.
Prononcez, s'il vous plaît. Sylvie, Mimi.
Ooh. To make the sound ooh, I round my lips and the inside of my mouth as though I were saying goose. Ooh. Again, no diphthong.
Prononcez, s'il vous plaît. Où, vous, nous, où.
U. For the French U, begin with the sound E, pronounce E. Now, while keeping the inside of your mouth in the E position, round your lips like OO. E, OO, E, OO.
Prononcez, s'il vous plaît. tu, du, sur. Excusez-moi. Communication. Petit dialogue. Écoutez et répétez, puis lisez le dialogue entier, s'il vous plaît.
Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour, madame. Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Bonsoir, monsieur.
Bonsoir, madame. Bonsoir, mademoiselle.
Au revoir, monsieur.
Au revoir, madame. Au revoir, mademoiselle. Excusez-moi, madame.
Pas de problème, monsieur.
Excusez-moi, mademoiselle.
Je parle français. Tu parles français?
Oui, je parle français.
Tu parles anglais?
Oui, je parle anglais.
Christian parle anglais et français.
Anne parle français et anglais.
Nous parlons français et anglais.
Tout le monde parle français.
Vous parlez français, monsieur?
Oui, madame, je parle français. Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît.
Je m'appelle Anne Williams. Et vous?
Je m'appelle Christian Roche. Et vous? Je m'appelle... Écoutez et répétez, s'il vous plaît.
Vous êtes français?
Oui, je suis français.
Christian est français.
Vous êtes américaine, hein?
Oui, je suis américaine.
Anne est américaine. Groupe 2. Compréhension. Écoutez et puis répondez aux questions. Tous les week-ends, il y a une grande réception à la résidence de l'ambassadeur américain. L'ambassadeur invite des entrepreneurs importants pour les échanges économiques entre la France et les États-Unis. Au début de la soirée, pendant le cocktail, des musiciens présentent un concert ou un récital. Les chefs-d'œuvre classiques sont très populaires, mais les invités apprécient aussi la musique moderne de Ravel ou de Debussy. Dans les jardins du château, il y a de belles roses avec un parfum intense et délicat. Quel plaisir! Répondez oui ou non, s'il vous plaît. La réception est à l'ambassade de France? Non. Les musiciens présentent un concert? Oui. Il y a des roses dans le jardin? Oui.